Welcome to another episode of Backstage Pass with Phoenix, all about the behind the scenes of the entertainment industry. We've got an exciting interview today. I've seen on my social media feeds these new like robots and all these things. There's a lot of talk and hype about AI. And I remember recently actually saving this video that was talking about how AI is kind of taking over a lot of actors' jobs and things. Anyway, so I thought this could be a fun topic to kind of delve into AI and the entertainment industry. So we have HP Newquist with us. He is brilliant with AI. I mean, he's got a lot of things. I was looking at his Wikipedia page, and I couldn't choose what to tell you about his bio. But he is a guitar enthusiast. I think he did something with he did the exhibit with the National Guitar Museum, curated multiple museums. He's written multiple books. He also did a documentary episode with about John Denver, and then the history of Robbie Robertson, which we'll ask him about. That Disney picked up. And he also is an advanced tech business analyst in the AI industry since like for a few decades now, I
Yeah.
guess. And then also, of course, he's doing the AI exhibit at the Museum of Idaho in Idaho Falls. So that's how we found him. Welcome, HP.
Oh, thank you. That was a nice intro. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And by the way, HP is a secret. He won't tell me what it means. So,
Means
yeah,
whatever anybody wants it to mean.
it's Harry. We have Harry Potter on with us right now.
There you go.
Well, I'm very curious about all of your background, all these wonderful things that you do. I guess one thing I said that we would kind of delve into, this was some of the audience wants to hear about this Disney episode that you did. So you did a documentary and got picked up by Disney and was distributed by them. I guess let's just kind of talk a little bit about that for a second. What was that about?
This was several years ago, more years ago than I care to count. But Bob Dylan's original band, The Band, was led by Robbie Robertson, who went on to a solo career of his own. And essentially, a couple of companies in America got together and wanted to do a documentary of the history of this band that was behind Bob Dylan and was there when he became electric, and essentially then went on to their own fame. And I was approached, I was already writing for guitar magazines, and I was approached to write the documentary. And the documentary is Emmy nominated in a couple of categories, and it was called Going Home. So it was a look back at the history of this band and how they had supported Dylan. And interestingly enough, the last surviving member of the band, Garth Hudson, just died last week. So it's a little more poignant now, but it was really interesting because we traveled around with some of the members of the band and looked at their history and went back to Woodstock, and that's where they lived, and they kind of made Woodstock famous. So it was an interesting career diversion.
Yeah, you've done a lot of things, so many things in the media that I want to talk about a little bit of everything if we can get to it. But, today's episode is specifically about AI. I was going to ask though about documentary writing. I mean, I've done a documentary. It was like a one-man band thing, but so when you write a documentary, somebody else is filming it, they're doing all the stuff, and you're just writing what shots you should get. How does that work as far as being the documentary writer?
You basically have to learn everything there is to know about the subject matter. So in this case, there have been a couple of books written about Dylan and the band, and even about Robbie and his career. And I went back and researched all those and read all those, and basically created a script. I mean, I laid out a script of here's the most important elements of the life of the band, the life of Robbie Robertson, and you plot that out, and then you script it in terms of not what they're going to say when you interview them, but what you want to ask them and where you want to ask them. So we filmed it all around the country. We filmed in Woodstock, we filmed in New Orleans, we filmed in California. But my role was not only to lay out the timeline and the most important elements to discuss, but also to be there to fact check things that went on or to see if we missed anything, like during an interview, somebody didn't talk about something. So once you give it to the photographer, or I'm sorry, the director of photography, the director, the producer, they kind of take it and do what they want with it, but you're still there to make sure that everything's kind of in place and accurate.
Mm. Well, it seems like you've done, like I said, a lot of things in media. So you've done that documentary, you're a writer, you've done, speaking of writing, you've done a lot of books, and then you've done these exhibits. You're also into music, it sounds like guitar. I don't know if, does that, do you play guitar? Is that why you love guitars?
I do. I was the editor. I was a failed rock star, as most people who play guitar are. Um, and for many years, I was the editor in chief of Guitar Magazine, and that's kind of how I got involved with the documentary on Robbie and the band. But after I stopped doing that, I had a fairly decent sized guitar collection and started the National Guitar Museum. And the National Guitar Museum now has over 200 some odd guitars, and we tour them around the world as part of a history of the guitar. So people come to the exhibits, they look at guitars, they learn, how they evolved from ancient instruments to who plays them today. As a matter of fact, the Museum of Idaho, not quite 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, actually hosted one of those exhibits. They were one of the first people, or one of the first museums to host one of our guitar exhibits. So for our AI exhibit, this is kind of a return back to a place that we really enjoyed exhibiting our stuff at.
Wow. So, so you have this background in Guitar Magazine, guitars. You're a rock star. You're a ebook writer. All
Failed.
these things. Would you say there's anything that you have a background in that you would say, oh, I was like, I have a tech background or a writing background? Would you put it in a box anywhere?
I'm ruthlessly curious. I don't have anything that compels me at any one given time. The two things in my career that have been most compelling to me and that I've been able to utilize have been the guitar music, the music industry, and the extreme high tech advanced industry. And both of those kind of came together because when I got out of college, I had a degree in English and I was a writer.
Mm.
And so I started writing about high tech. I started writing about guitars. And so the writing has kind of tied all that together over the years.
And what pulled you into this world of artificial intelligence?
Uh, my dad worked for a company in the 1960s. It was one of the very first computer companies. And so they were always, when we'd go visit him at his office and factory, we would be exposed to computers and kind of how they worked and what they were being used for. And back then, computers were the size of refrigerators, and there was no personal computers. There were no cell phones. But I was exposed to it, and I became very familiar with the technology. And so when my dreams of being a rock star kind of fell by the wayside, um, as I said, I had a degree. I was a writer, and I saw that there was not a lot of people writing about really high tech stuff, and I had an interest in that. And so I started writing for a few different computer magazines based on the knowledge I gleaned as a kid. And I found early inklings of AI. This is back in the late 80s. And nobody else was writing about it. And so I researched it. I did a lot of, I spent a lot of time with companies and the people who were developing it. And I became one of the only people in the country who was writing about AI at the time. And so I wrote a newsletter about it. I was a columnist for a number of magazines. I spoke at places all around the world about it. But the first wave of AI imploded around 1994. And then I took my writing and went to writing about guitars.
So interesting. I love hearing people in the media because their stories are always so I mean, it's not a linear path, right? Nobody's
No,
talking to
not
you, but especially not in the entertainment or the media industry. So I love this. We're gonna take a quick break, but don't worry. I know you have questions. I know you all have questions about how he got into all these different careers. So we'll try to get to those at the end, but first we're gonna talk about the AI and the entertainment industry when we come back here on Backstage Pass. As promised, we are going to talk about AI and the entertainment industry. We are here with HP Newquist. I can't think of anyone better. He is an advanced tech business analyst in the AI industry. I think you started this like several decades ago. Anyway, you've been in involved in the AI industry. He also has the new exhibit at the Museum of Idaho, which we will talk about as well, the new AI exhibit. So, AI and the entertainment industry, I guess this is a very broad question, but how do you feel like AI has influenced the entertainment industry?
Well, it's a really contentious point right now. I mean, the writers and actors strikes of a couple of years ago, one of the main sticking points was that uh, the use of AI by the studios was something that the writers and the actors were fearful of and still are,
Mhm.
because a lot of the AI is used to either replicate the work of writers, make write scripts, which AI can do very well now, or in the case of actors, be used in place of actors. You can create short films with AI just by typing prompts into the appropriate application.
Mm.
And it's also been used, it was used in the most recent Tom Hanks film to de-age him. Um, it's been used for crowd scenes. It's been used for doing storyboards. So that part of it is specific to the movie industry. The music industry, you can go to several free AI apps online and compose your own music just by saying, you know, create me a heavy metal song about staying in Idaho Falls during 5-degree weather. And 5 seconds later, you can have a song that is actually produced with music, no humans involved, with drums, guitar, bass, and a vocal line. Lyrics created right there in seconds. So that takes the place of any musicians that would be in a studio. And people can do that at any point during the day. They might want to create soundtracks to their daily lives,
Mhm.
which would prevent them from listening to music by established artists or up and coming struggling artists.
So, what is your opinion? Do you feel like this is a good thing for the industry? Do you think that this is something that is harmful for those that are entertainers?
I think I think both. And I'll explain that. I think that originally the idea of AI was that it could be used as a tool and could be used to help create better music, faster music. I mean, I use AI when I create music to help mix my final songs, and
Mhm.
it's brilliant in doing that. It
Mhm.
makes them sound better. It adds touches to the music, but it doesn't create any of the actual music. We're at a point now where you can create music that sounds like it was created by people or using actual musicians. And I'm not sure that's a good thing because right now you don't have any way of knowing what's real and what's not. You can have artists that sound like other artists. You have somebody type in, create me a song that sounds like AC/DC, and you'd be surprised at how close it comes to it and be like, oh, that's an AC/DC song. Well, no, it's not. And AC/DC is not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
So that can be harmful. And until there's some kind of guardrails in place that allows you to identify whether it's real or not, that's not necessarily good. And the same applies in Hollywood. There need to be some ways in which you can identify what's AI and what's human.
Yeah, I not only am I a talk show host, but also I'm very involved in the media industry in a lot of different aspects, including music and including I'm an actress and a spokesperson. And I do see a lot of spokesperson roles and voiceover roles. I'm also a voiceover artist
Right.
being replaced by AI. From an artist perspective, it's like, no, that's our job. This is our livelihood. From a producer perspective, it's like, this is great. Cheap work, fast results, exactly, almost exactly what I want. But I also will say, that as a creator, sometimes as an acting coach as well, I'll use AI to quickly write a script so that I can give
Right.
it to my actors, right? I I mean, I'm using like Copilot, so that might not be like the most advanced AI, I don't know. But it's not quite there for me. It's like using the same word, like the same names, and it really jogs my creativity
Right.
so that I can get there faster, but I don't think AI is quite there yet as far as Copilot goes. It's like the script needs a bit of work, and I feel like that's where my human talent comes in. I don't know what you think about that. Do you feel like we will be replaced? Is the AI that good that it will replace us?
It's your points are really well taken, especially with Copilot, which is kind of like introducing AI to people, much like spell checking was decades ago.
Great.
When people are like, "Oh, it's catching all my mistakes when I'm typing." and it gradually inserts itself into the way you work, where you expect spell checking to always catch your mistakes. And you're going to expect something like Copilot to help spur creativity, to come up with an idea or to rearrange a sentence that's perhaps a little bit tortured in the way that it's presented. Um, it's it's a tool that helps do exactly what you said, spurs creativity, and it can come up with ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of, especially if you're just spitballing and you're asking it back and forth. But the minute it starts taking people's jobs, and you're right, voiceover artists, and I have a daughter who's a voiceover artist, and she and everyone else in that business is going to have to contend with the fact that AI right now is close enough to replicate the script that a director wants or a producer wants with lifelike feel. And the thing that's going to separate humans from the machines is right now the humans are going to have to use the machines. So the thing that we tell people is AI might not take your job, but someone who's using AI will.
Mhm.
So you need to be aware, or just people in general need to be aware that AI is a tool, and the faster you embrace it and kind of get control of it before it gets control of you, the better off artists are going to be.
I love that. Well, I have a really good question to go along with that, but we need to take a quick break. So we're gonna finish this thought when we come back, talking about AI and the entertainment business. When we come back here on Backstage Pass with Phoenix. I have a burning question. Now we're talking about AI and the entertainment business with HP Newquist, and you talked about how maybe AI won't take over your job as an artist in the entertainment industry, but somebody that's utilizing AI will. So the question is, how can we utilize AI to not be replaced? What kind of things can we do? What kind of AI is even out there?
Well, you can start with ChatGPT, which right now is the most famous of all the AIs, and you can use it for free online. And just as you were talking about with creating scripts, a lot of people can use ChatGPT for almost anything you can imagine. And outside of the arts, you can use it to plan a budget. You can use it for your household finances. You can use it to plan a trip, make your travel plans. You can ask it questions about which colleges you might want to go to and which offer the best curriculum. But when it gets specific to artists, I think you start with ChatGPT and you ask, here's my career. What can I do with it? What are my options? And it's not going to give you everything, but it's going to give you ideas. Like, oh, I can do this. And it's really good for marketing. Like, especially take a company that wants to introduce a new product. What demographic should we go for with this product? Which parts of the country should we advertise in? And it can give you lists and lists and lists of really good ideas. So the same thing with artists or any career. You can ask it to give you ideas as to what can I do that would advance my career? What can I do that would enhance my level of professionalism? What can I do to compete with other people in the same industry? So at that level, it kind of helps as an advisor and gives you advice. Once you've delved into AI in that way, there are tons of tools online like Sora, like Suno, um, that are music production and video production tools that you can play with and see if that will help you get a better understanding of where you fit in there. Like maybe if you're an actor, maybe I should be developing my own films. Maybe I should imagine myself in this role and find out what I would look like in this film that I see in my head, but now I can actually create it up quickly on a computer. So once you get an idea of where you want to go, then there are lots of tools that right now are available for free that you can kind of play with in order to envision what your future might look like.
I think some people are scared of AI. I think a lot of people are scared of AI and they're scared of using it because they think, and this might be true or not, I don't know, as you're using it, it's gathering your thoughts and kind of learning from that. So I think a lot of people are fearful of it. And, you even hear, I've heard, some of the makers of Facebook were even like, we didn't know the monster we were creating. We thought we were creating one
Right.
thing and it's just kind of, run out of our hands. Do you think Do you speculate that AI will get to the point where it is out of our hands, or do you think we can stay smarter than AI?
That's the Terminator scenario.
Hmm.
Does the machine become smarter than we are? Right now, I don't find that to be a huge issue. Privacy is an issue no matter what. You just mentioned Facebook. A lot of our lives are online. A lot of us can be found online. The things that you talk to ChatGPT about currently, they guarantee your privacy. So it only sticks within your sort of realm, your silo, your personal area. And it's allegedly not used for anything else. So you can kind of, if you're so inclined, you can kind of trust that that will be an advisor that just keeps your information safe. Now, if there's a leak or somebody hacks into it, that's an entirely different issue, and that's something we deal with, with our banks or with Amazon. Our information gets leaked. So there's a certain degree of, I don't want to call it trust, but there's a certain degree of acceptance that you have to have in terms of diving in. Is it better to dive in and risk the consequences, or is it better to stay out and not have anything to do with it? If you stay out and don't have anything to do with it, you're going to get trampled by it.
Mm. So learn about it. Learn about it.
The thing that part of our AI exhibit here in Idaho Falls is to try and make AI real and relevant. And as I said earlier, it might not take your job, but somebody who knows more about it and uses AI could take your job. So the better the information that you have, the better you can deal with it, because it's not going away. It's
Hmm.
going to be here, and it's here forever.
Hmm.
So getting used to the idea of it being a daily part of your life, just like your cell phone is, the sooner the better.
I think that's a good point. I do have this question from a listener that I think it's very pressing right now. They're asking about what you think about DeepSeek. DeepSeek just came out,
Yeah.
and how do you think it will affect the future, or how do you think it affects now, I guess?
It's funny. I got here on Monday, so just this past week, to help set up the exhibit in Idaho Falls at the Museum of Idaho. And Monday was the day that it was kind of released to the world. And it had been available for a few weeks, but it was the day the stock market crashed because it's like, oh, China's taking over AI. I think it's a big deal. It's going to make more people pay attention to it. The Chinese government has their fingers in it, even though it's not a Chinese government run application. Um, Chinese approach to AI is that everybody's information is all available to the government, and there's no sort of firewall between users and sharing their information with the government.
Mm.
And people who use it in other countries, primarily here in America, risk having that information be used by the Chinese government. Um, so I think that there's a part of it to be afraid of in terms of you're actually using that. I think the beneficial part of it is that it's calling people's attention to the fact that AI is out there and there's lots of people using it, not just people in Silicon Valley and not just in high tech, but the whole world is using it. And more companies will be entering that space. So not only OpenAI, which makes ChatGPT, or Microsoft, which makes Copilot, there's going to be a lot more companies getting involved in this, and there are going to be more options. So kind of a wake-up call on one hand, but a little frightening in that, the Chinese government might use that information in ways that we don't necessarily agree with or like.
Mhm.
So yeah, DeepSeek is a big deal.
And for those people who don't know, can you explain a little bit what DeepSeek is?
The DeepSeek is start with ChatGPT, which is the most popular AI application in America, which provides you information when you ask it things or prompt it to provide you with things, like I said, travel plans or making a budget. Incredibly expensive to make. It required billions of dollars in hardware and software and took several years to make. DeepSeek claims that they produced a software called DeepSeek that is competitive with ChatGPT and almost as smart as ChatGPT for a tenth of the price and a tenth of the time. So, and also a tenth of the hardware cost, processing cost. So they were doing it for millions of dollars, not hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's a concern because if you can make those huge AI applications for a lot less money and a lot fewer processors, more companies can get into the game. And it means, what about all, at least at the investment level, what about all these billions of dollars that have been invested in bigger, bolder initiatives? Now, smaller companies can make this. And so, how does that change the competitive landscape in terms of who's producing the applications? Is it
Yeah.
small companies? Is it colleges? It changes the playing field a little bit, and so people are a little bit nervous about how that plays out.
So I guess with all this, at the beginning of the interview, you were talking about the importance of guardrails, right? And I think that's kind of the discussion that's going to be happening for the next decade or so is just the
Yeah.
guardrails around AI. It does seem like it's going to be a very prevalent part of our lives. So what guardrails do you think need to be set in place for AI?
I am not a big fan of regulation. I think government should stay out of things. But in the case of I think AI should be treated like nuclear power. Um, in the right hands, nuclear power, even at small levels, is incredibly important. We use nuclear power to for medical devices, things for fMRI machines. We use it for creating energy, but we do our best to make sure it doesn't become weaponized. And that's really why we control nuclear power. Exact same thing should apply to AI. AI can diagnose many diseases faster than human doctors.
Wow.
It can recognize potential drug treatments faster or recommend them faster than many doctors can. On the other hand, that's wonderful. On the other hand, it can create deep fakes. It can create images of people doing things that they never did. It can produce news of events that never occurred. So it can be used to subvert our understanding of what's real and what's not. And I think the guardrails have to be, and again, I'm not a fan of regulation, but I think government has to do something just like it does with nuclear power. And unfortunately, our government, which is made up mostly of people who don't understand the technology, are already way behind the curve and don't even know where to start because ChatGPT only came out just a little over 2 years ago. And everything before that changed. And they were working on it back then. The tech that they were working on prior to that no longer exists, no longer matters. So now they're going to play catch up with what ChatGPT has been doing. Now they got to deal with DeepSeek.
Yeah.
They're going to have to deal with something new in another week or two. And so we're a little bit late in getting to the point where we need to do something, but something should happen. And I can't tell my government what to do because they don't usually listen to people like us.
Yeah. But definitely some regulations, especially regarding privacy, who can use it, and something to stop it from getting into the wrong hands. I think we all agree with that. We're gonna wrap this segment up with HB Newquist in just a little bit here, but we'll be back about AI in the entertainment industry. We come back here on Backstage Pass. This has been really enlightening to me. I have a lot of questions, just being involved in the media myself about AI, and I agree with you. We've talked about a lot of the benefits, a lot of the just wonders and magic almost of AI, but also some of the realities and scary factors at this point, without a lot of knowledge of where AI could go and whose hands it could be in. But we're kind of relating this back to the media industry, the entertainment industry, and we started off this segment talking about one of the issues is people don't know now what's real and what's fake at this moment because AI is kind of new to us and it looks so real. So what would your advice be to people to be able to sift through and find the truth within this AI world?
It's really, really very hard. There's no catch-all answer to that. We actually have a part of the exhibit here in Idaho Falls shows images just from the last few months, from the fires in LA to Hurricane Helene in North Carolina and on the east coast of the U.S. that were used in the media that were generated by who knows? They just showed up in social media. There was a great picture of a girl in a lifeboat with her puppy being saved during the hurricane.
Mhm.
It was posted by lots of politicians saying FEMA is not doing its job. wasn't a real picture. It
Was
was
it
generated.
not? Oh, wow.
No,
I saw that
yeah,
picture. Yeah.
it was not. It's not real. And there's
Wow.
another great picture of the Hollywood sign being on fire, and that got posted millions of times. Not real, and it's very, very hard to deal with. And so people have to be the best thing I think people can do when they're dealing with any kind of information today is double check. You can't take anything at face value and go, oh, I see that. That's real. You have to find a second source. You have to go and say, well, has anybody else seen this picture? Or can you find that picture anywhere else? The media hasn't done a good job of covering that yet. They're going to have to because the media won't exist
Hmm.
if they can't produce real reality and they can't identify fake things. So people have to be on their guard. They have to double check what they see and what they hear to make sure that it's in fact real and an event that included humans and not completely generated by someone using an AI app.
So you mentioned the media, and the media is not doing a good job of kind of deciphering. Do you have any advice for those in media? Like,
Well, I should clarify. Mostly the news media. People in the wider media, as you were talking about, artists and entertainers and performers, musicians, actors, actresses. That's a different issue in terms of the media. The news media needs to get on it much quicker. And the problem with the news media is they're getting battered around by politicians who are claiming they're producing fake news, even when they're doing real news.
mhm.
And there has to be a watchdog, perhaps, agency that we have that identifies that stuff. There should be watermarks. As I said, how do you identify a song that's produced by AI versus someone by humans in a studio? And all of those things should come, whether they come or not, is up to the government. Unfortunately, the government, and again, does not always listen to people like us. But in the meantime, people just have to be aware that there's incredible potential in AI, but there's also peril.
Mhm.
And so they have to look at both sides and they have to look, do I want it to go this way? And how am I going to pay attention to it in my own life? But also, could it be affecting me in ways I don't know, like through news images? And being aware and being wary
Mhm.
is key to embracing AI.
I also have a journalist background, and I feel like this goes back to the roots of what we've always talked about, which is, what you had mentioned, going back to the source, checking your sources, checking things multiple times, and that's a skill that we learn in journalism, but not
Right.
everybody learns to double check your sources, to ask questions, to have this skeptical. I think being skeptical and being critical are two different things, and I think you can have a healthy relationship with skepticism to be able to find your own answers. And it
Right.
also emphasizes this power in human to human relationships. If you can have a straight source, the best sources going directly to a person to have these interpersonal relationships, which I don't know if AI can really replace. And I think it also, as far as entertainment goes, this also highlights this power in original content creation. Like, if you can have original content, then you know the truth of it, you know where it's from. You don't have as many questions about how much of this is fake, how much of this is real, all that stuff. Anyway, so
No, that's exactly the point. Everything you just said is exactly the point.
so I love that you are bringing this to the forefront, and I want to hear more about this exhibit. So, what is in the exhibit? You mentioned a few things, fires, pictures of fires, and things. What can people expect at the Museum of Idaho exhibit?
It's called Artificial Intelligence, Your Mind in the Machine. So it's a look at not only the history of AI, which goes back to the first idea of man trying to create artificial life or creating other machines that think. And that includes, going back to an 18-year-old girl who wrote Frankenstein. I mean, Frankenstein's monster is still the best example of man playing God and trying to create an intelligent device or being that goes rogue and goes wrong. So we look at the history of it through movies and books, literature, entertainment, but also through the actual history and development of the science. Because AI is whatever people think. AI is not a thinking thing. It's math. Everything that AI does is mathematics. Anybody that tells you it's thinking or feeling is being disingenuous. It is math. It's insanely complicated math. There's probably only a few thousand people in the world who understand the math. but it's all math. So we try to show people how that works and how it's been developed with interactives. They can play with ChatGPT. They can play with Sora. They can play with facial recognition software. They can do face capture. When you take a face of a human and then plot it onto a different human or a different character. Uh, they'll be able to watch videos of Chinese surveillance videos, videos of what a self-driving car sees through the windshield.
Wow.
So there's an entire realm of uh, both technology and history that they get to experience that, as I said earlier, makes AI real and relevant to their own lives and leaves it a little bit open ended. Like, do you think this is going to be good for us? Is it going to be bad for us? You need to think about this because it's going to be part of your world.
Mm, I love that thought. It really is, especially those of us in the entertainment business. I mean, this show is all about empowering you, interviewing people like HP, and so as you listen to this, listeners, then I want you to be able to be empowered to share your own message. And I think this is a great point. Utilizing um, artificial intelligence and getting to know it because I was at a I was at a party with some producers recently, and one of the things they said is they don't feel like artificial intelligence can replace humans because so much of the human experience is grieving, is suffering, and they
Yeah,
don't feel like that's something that AI can do. And I agree with that at this point anyway in AI. I don't feel like you can replace the human experience of what you said, emotion, feeling. And that's exactly what we do in entertainment is we help people
right.
feel. We help people know, we help people feel. And so I love that you're empowering people because the more we know, the less we fear. I don't think artificial intelligence should be something we fear because we take away our power as media influencers when we're fearful. When we know, when we can be on top of things, then that's where we gain control as entertainers, as media influencers in the business. So thank you so
Exactly.
much for that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, perfect. That you said it perfectly.
So if people want to go see your exhibit, where can they go?
Well, it's at the Museum of Idaho, just opened. It's going to be there for 3 months, so right up until the beginning of May almost. Every day at the Museum of Idaho in Idaho Falls, and it's the main attraction right now.
Wonderful. And if people want to connect with you, hear more about you, and ask their questions that I did not get to, where can they go?
My website is newquist.net. Um, I can be reached there. My bio is there. My email is there. Happy to hear from anybody who's curious about books, guitars, artificial
Anything, really.
intelligence.
He knows everything, so you can
not
ask him anything.
you can't ask me about basketball. I just don't like
You can
basketball.
chat GPT if you don't know it.
That's right. Everything else is fair game though.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been so enlightening. We truly appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time and having me on.
Yes. And thank you for listening to another episode. You can catch this, share it with your friends, anywhere you get your podcasts, and also on YouTube on Backstage Pass with Phoenix. We'll catch you next time.